Welcome Marines, Captain DiPietro here. This is going to be your 101 Days of Summer annual training video. Now, as mentioned in the introduction video, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out real quick. This is not sole responsibility on me to teach you 101 Days of Summer through this video. You're going to need to look through PowerPoints, orders, whatever it is that may impact your 101 Days of Summer based off of your training, based off of the McBowl. So don't think that this is the only thing you need to do to watch this video. But other than that, we're going to start off just in general what 101 Days of Summer means. And that's going to be, as we enter the summer months here, a lot of accidents happen in the summer. Whether that's carelessness, a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience doing some of the activities that we have laid out here. There are a lot of bad things that happen to Marines and the civilian population as well during the summer, and we want to eliminate that as much as possible. Obviously, things are going to happen no matter what. You can take every precaution in the world and something bad is still going to happen to somebody. But if we can reduce the number of accidents, especially the number of accidental deaths that we have to Marines based off of these activities, then what we're doing is successful. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is going to be heat and hydration. I'm giving you this talk from Georgia here. It's already about 80, 85 degrees and it's April 5th. So as we reach into the summer months, it gets up to that 95, 100 degree range. Now, if you're in a different part of the world, it might not be as drastic, but it's still going to be hot no matter where you are. If you're coming from an environment where you aren't used to either a higher temperature or an increased humidity, then you might not be as acclimated to that temperature or humidity yet. So make sure you take some time before you start doing strenuous activities to get used to the environment. So if you're coming from, say, Alaska and you're moving down to Florida, don't go out and run your marathon right away. Make sure you work up to it and get acclimated to that temperature of that environment. Obviously, drinking is going to be a huge aspect of whether or not you suffer from heat exhaustion, heat stress in general, heat strokes. So make sure you're constantly drinking water before, during, and after. A big tip that I've picked up through sports just over the years is making sure when you're doing your activities that you're sipping water in between sets, in between reps, whatever it may be, just so you're not gulping all that water down at one time. It's not the greatest thing for you, and it's going to weigh you down a little bit too. So making sure we're staying hydrated, make sure you get accustomed to that environment before you start doing strenuous activity. That's going to be a huge part of eliminating heat related incidents. The next thing we're going to talk about here is camping. So if you're in an environment where you might camp a lot, then great. I highly encourage it. Camping is a great tool for family bonding. It's a great tool for getting used to the environment, just like we talked about with the heat. So enjoy your surroundings, enjoy nature, definitely take your kids out there. There's a lot of fun stuff to do with regard to camping. The biggest thing with camping that we see incidents are when folks camp where they're not supposed to be or when they're not supposed to be. So make sure you read the guidelines of the campground, the location, the state that you're in before you partake in camping activities. There might be some rules that you have to follow, and if you don't follow them, not only can you get in trouble for it, but there probably is a reason for the rule. So whether it's local nature, the animals that are in the habitat there that might be harmful to you, just make sure you're reading the rules and following all the regulations, and read up on that before you go camping, especially if you're in a new area and you aren't used to it. Also with regard to camping is make sure you have all the appropriate equipment, all the supplies that you need to do the camping activity that you want to do before you get started. So don't go out camping without proper tents, without proper equipment. What we talked about with heat exhaustion, so it is pretty warm here, but if you get up in the mountains, it might be a lot colder. So make sure you have the appropriate warming layers if you're going into that colder environment. Even in the summer, it can get cold, up higher in the mountains. So make sure you have all the proper equipment, and then supplies. Make sure you have everything that you need: food, water, anything else, light sources, heat sources. All those things are going to come in handy. So do some reading up on that before you go. You might be a seasoned veteran, and that's great. Keep doing that and spread that wealth of knowledge to your children, to your family. But if you aren't, if you haven't been doing it for a while, if you're brand new to the activity of camping, then go out there, read, do some updates on what's going on in the world, figure out what's going on at those campsites before you go out and participate in those activities. Okay, next topic is going to be swimming. So we can swim in an abundant of areas. Obviously, we're in the middle of the coronavirus travel ban currently, so not a whole lot of swimming going on except for the baby pools in the driveway, which is awesome. Keep doing that. Just stay safe. But we can swim in lakes, we can swim in rivers, we can swim in ponds, in the ocean, and in swimming pools, among other things. So we'll start kind of small probably, and we'll start with the swimming pools. A lot of accidents with regard to swimming and swimming pools happen because of something we'll talk about later, which is just alcohol consumption and drinking. How many times have you read or seen on the news somebody dive off a top of a roof into a pool that's 3 feet and they break their spine, right? So I've known a few people that have done that, and it's not something you want to be a part of. So just make sure you're staying smart when you're at the swimming pools, making sure that your family is being taken care of, if you're taking care of your families, or being smart with them, making sure that the kids are being watched at all times. We've seen incidents really where young children are in pools or in bodies of water, and there's something that happens to them that could have been very easily prevented if there was proper adult supervision. So make sure you're taking care of your families during those activities in the pools. And then make sure the pools are clean. That might not be something that you can do on your own, but definitely if there's any question of the cleanliness of the pool, especially with all the situation that we got going on right now with COVID, just make sure that you're taking care of everything you need to take care of before you swim in that pool. Next, when we talk about, we'll rope lakes and ponds and really rivers together. I guess rivers maybe a little bit separate for the fact that it's flowing water, so you don't want to get caught in rapids and things like that. But one thing to be concerned of with those is just, again, the cleanliness of the water. So if you're swimming in an area that's close to a dump or a landfill or something like that and runoff happens, you might not want to be swimming in that area. There's also going to be a lot less visibility in the water, in those bodies of water. So making sure that the animals that are there, the fish, if you're in South Georgia, Florida areas, you're talking about alligators and snakes and stuff like that. So just be aware of the animals in your environment before you start partaking in that. Just yesterday, I was reading on the news that another Kennedy family tragedy happened with someone canoeing in the Chesapeake Bay, I believe. Could be wrong. So just making sure that you have the proper equipment when you participate in other items on the water. So if you're canoeing, kayaking, stuff like that, making sure you have either personal flotation devices, whatever you need to properly participate in that. I know it's not necessarily swimming, it's kind of more in the boating range, but they're all related. Just be careful, make sure you have everything you need when you go into those bodies of water. And then ocean swimming. So we talk about riptides a lot with regard to oceans. I'm not an ocean guru or anything like that, but I know that the further out you go, the motion of the water might change to the point where it starts pulling you away from land instead of towards land. And once you're caught in that, it's pretty difficult to get out of. So I know a lot of experts will say you want to swim perpendicular to the current or the riptide that's moving out so you can try to get out of it. A lot of folks will say, hey, wait it out and just try to keep your head above water until you get out of it. So make sure you do reading on what's popular in the areas that you're going down. I'm sure that the riptides down in the Gulf are different than the ones on the Atlantic, which are different than the ones in the Pacific if you're ever out that way. So do some reading on that. Make sure you know what you're doing and what you need to do to get out of situations like that, and inform your family and friends when you're going to areas of concern. All right, boating. So boating is a great activity if you've got it. There's a lot of lakes and rivers around here that we can boat on. I'm sure if you're watching from an area that's landlocked, then you might be disappointed in the boating opportunities there, but you're going to go at some point. So one thing to note about boating is that you can get boating under the influence. So I know boating is very commonly paired with drinking. So be careful when you're doing that, making sure you have really something similar to a designated driver when you're participating in events and activities regarding boating and drinking. But just be safe. Same thing with everything else. Be smart, be an adult, and be responsible, especially when you got kids involved, right? You don't want to put them at risk anything more than they already are, just being on a boat in general. Follow the rules. Same thing with the swimming or camping. Make sure you read the rules of the area that you're in. So if you're boating on certain lakes or whatever body of water it might be, they might have different rules regarding wakes. So how fast you can be going within a certain point. They might have buoys that are marking, hey, you can speed up past 25 knots, past this point, whatever it might be. Those are just examples. So make sure you read up on those bits of information and sort of the rules of the road for whatever body of water you're boating on. So be careful with that and stay safe. Next, we're going to talk about motorcycle safety. I'm not a motorcycle expert. If you're watching from the Marine Corps Attachment here at Fort Benning, Sergeant Bedman is our motorcycle rep. So if you have any more specific motorcycle questions, you can feel free to reach out to him. But in general, just make sure you're following the same rules of the road for motorcycles as you are anything else. Make sure you read up on it. If you're wearing a uniform right now, as most of you probably are, then you have to have gone through a pipeline of motorcycle training to even be allowed to ride your motorcycle and then to be allowed to own your motorcycle. So make sure you have all that paperwork and all the training done before you participate in activities like that. Something that is fairly recent is that motorcycles safety is now kind of been extended to all-terrain vehicles. So if you grew up in an area maybe in the Midwest or in the South where four-wheelers and ATVs were pretty prominent and you grew up driving those and having a good time, well, just because you did that growing up doesn't mean that you're allowed to do that without the proper training. So make sure you go through all the proper and necessary training to be able to drive those vehicles and operate those vehicles so that just in case something happens, you're covered, but also the training is there for a purpose to make sure that you stay safe and ride properly and have fun when you're doing it. So other things with motorcycles, just make sure you have the right stuff on. I remember when I was very young in the Marine Corps, my first preliminary inquiry was a young PFC who got in a motorcycle accident and his whole left side of his body was torn up and burned. And when I asked him what he was wearing like jean shorts and a t-shirt, right? So he didn't have any leather on or anything that would be protecting him from an accident. And ever since then, you think, why would anyone ever not wear what they're supposed to be wearing on motorcycles? So just be careful. Wear what you're supposed to be wearing. Wear those helmets, eye protection. Similar to what things we talked about here is if you're driving somewhere, be aware of the weather. So you don't want to be rained on. That would be number one. But if you're going from maybe a warmer environment to a cooler environment, make sure you have the necessary warming layers so that you're not freezing on your motorcycle ride. So just be safe, go through all the proper training, do everything that you need to do, and cover yourself. All right, next up we got fireworks safety. So all I think about when I hear fireworks safety is Jason Pierre-Paul. So be careful. Don't be grabbing fireworks in your hands, letting them go off. Don't be aiming them at somebody. Fireworks are great, they're fun, they have a good time. I would recommend leaving them to the professionals or doing some sort of training before you participate in larger fireworks. I'm not talking like snakes and sparklers and stuff for my Joe Dirt fans out there. So just be careful before you participate in those. Depending on your region, you might be able to buy different and bigger fireworks. So make sure you know what you can and can't do in your region. Just like everything else, read the rules of your local area. But if you say you're driving through a state that you can buy fireworks and you go into a state that you can't buy them, just be careful. And then obviously be careful when you're putting them off, especially during the July 4th holiday. I would have to say probably the most fireworks that in probably New Year's Eve. So a lot of fireworks are going to go off then, so just be safe with that. Another thing to consider with fireworks is going to be your pets. If you have a lot of dogs that are sensitive to fireworks, which most of them probably are, just be careful with them. Be considerate of others that may have pets that are outside. So you might have a pet, but maybe your neighbor does have a dog, and don't light up those fireworks, right next to your neighbor's yard when the dog's outside. Stuff like that. Just be considerate of each other and be safe with those fireworks. Okay, last thing, probably the most important, and I think of the list, maybe the most substantial as far as Marines get in trouble leading to deaths. Might not be you, might be somebody else who's drunk driving. You might be a passenger. You might be an innocent bystander who gets hit by a drunk driver. But drunk driving is one of the things that I like to harp on with my Marines. It's one of those kind of unacceptable things to do, as a Marine, as a human being. So same rules apply in the summer as the rest of the year. Make sure you have that designated driver. If you're really getting behind the wheel of a car, if you know you're going to drive, you probably shouldn't have anything to drink. At most, limit that to a 1 drink maximum there. And then just take care of one another, right? So going out on your own is probably not the best idea, but if you're going to do so, then you probably shouldn't drink because you're going to find your way to the wheel of a car, and that's not a position that you want to find yourself in. Take care of your fellow Marines, your peers that you're going out with, and by all means, enjoy it. Enjoy beer, enjoy a drink, whatever you want to do, as long as you're of age. And if you do that, just make sure you have your plan. Make sure you have your buddy, make sure you have your designated driver, whatever it is, and then take care of each other out there. So these are our primary topics here, 101 days of summer. Probably nothing new that you picked up, but just want to reiterate some of the rules here. And make sure you guys, bottom line, take care of one another, take care of our fellow Marines, and enjoy your summer safely. And we look forward to everybody and getting back to normal here with COVID ending soon, hopefully. Otherwise, have a great day. Semper Fidelis.